There is a family in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, drinking water cleaner than what comes out of an American hospital. They pay $2 a month for it. $2. Your tap water costs $60 a month, maybe $120 depending on where you live. And it is not even clean, not by a long shot. A wooden barrel in an Amish basement, cleaner than a hospital filter, built in 1962 for $10, still working today. The Amish figured out something the rest of us forgot, and the methods they use are so simple, so effective, that the modern water industry has quietly stopped talking about them entirely. I am going to show you exactly how they do it. 4 layers, $14 in materials, and 1 finishing technique buried in a 1974 government document that disappeared from circulation by 1955. The first time I walked into one of these homes near Millersburg, Ohio, I asked the man of the house where his water filter was. He pointed at a wooden barrel in the corner and laughed. That barrel was cleaner than anything I had ever installed in my own house. And if you already own a home, this is not just for new construction. Stay with me. What I am about to share with you works in any basement, any garage, any utility closet, in any house built before or after 1980. You do not need permits. You do not need a contractor. You need about a weekend and roughly $14 in materials if you already have the basic supplies most folks keep in a shed. Let me take you back to something I saw with my own eyes in the spring of last year. I was visiting a family outside of Strasburg in Lancaster County, and the grandmother of the household, a woman in her 70s, poured me a glass of water from a spigot on a wooden cabinet in the kitchen. The water was cold, it was clear, and it tasted like nothing I had ever drunk in my life. No chlorine bite, no metallic edge, no flat plastic aftertaste from a bottle you paid $2 for at the gas station, just water, real water, the kind your grandfather drank from a creek when he was a boy, before everything was treated and retreated and bottled and sold back to you. I asked her where it came from. She told me it came from the rain. Now, I want you to understand what that means. This was not filtered municipal water. This was not well water either. Although the family had a well, this was rainwater collected off the roof, run through a series of natural materials, and stored in a stone cistern under the back porch. And the entire purification system, from the gutter to the glass in my hand, had cost her late husband less than $10 to build in 1962, 62 years ago. Still working, still producing water cleaner than what most of us pay for every month. The system works on 4 layers, and each one removes a specific category of contamination. The first layer is coarse sand, about 4 inches deep, and it traps the visible debris, the leaves, the grit, the things you can see. The second layer is fine sand, 6 to 8 inches deep, and it catches the things you cannot see, the silt and the suspended particles. The third layer is the one that does the real work. Activated charcoal, also called biochar, made from hardwood burned slowly in a low-oxygen fire. The Amish make it themselves from oak or maple scraps. It removes chlorine, pesticides, organic chemicals, and most heavy metals. The fourth layer is crushed limestone or pea gravel, and it does 2 things. It supports the layers above it, and it gently raises the pH of the water, removing that acidic edge that rainwater naturally has. That is the entire system. 4 layers. Total cost, if you have to buy everything fresh from a hardware store, is under $20. If you have access to wood, ash, and a creek bed, it can be done for less than $2. But here is where it gets interesting, because this is not just folk wisdom. The biochar layer is the same technology that the indigenous farmers of the Amazon basin have been using for thousands of years to enrich soil and purify water. It is the same technology that researchers at Marquette University were studying as recently as 2023. The porous structure of charcoal traps heavy metals, organic pollutants, and bacteria at a molecular level. And the Amish have been doing this since the 18th century, using nothing but a wood stove and a clay jar. So, why does nobody talk about this? Why is your local hardware store selling you a $400 reverse osmosis system when a $4 bucket of sand and charcoal will give you better water? Because somebody has been making sure you do not know There is a name I came across when I was digging through old agricultural extension records. The name is John Snow, not the doctor from the cholera outbreak in London. A different John Snow, an agricultural researcher who published a pamphlet in 1936 titled Rural Water Sanitation Methods, and that pamphlet is where I first found the 4-layer Amish system written down in plain English. The pamphlet was distributed for free across rural Pennsylvania during the Great Depression, when families could not afford to drill new wells or pay for water service. Hundreds of thousands of copies were printed. By 1955, the pamphlet had been quietly removed from circulation. By 1970, it was nearly impossible to find a copy outside of a university archive. I want you to think about why a free pamphlet that taught people how to purify their own water for pennies would disappear from circulation right around the time that municipal water systems were being expanded across the country. I am not going to tell you what to think. I am going to let you draw your own conclusions, but I will tell you this. The Federal Safe Drinking Water Act was passed in 1974. That same year, sales of home water filtration systems began climbing at a rate of 12 to 15% annually. By 1990, the bottled water industry in the United States was worth over $2 billion. Today, it is worth over $45 billion. Somebody got very rich teaching you that water is something you have to buy. The Amish never bought into it. They watched all of this happen, and they kept doing what they had always done. They kept collecting rain, they kept burning their own charcoal, they kept passing the knowledge from father to son, from mother to daughter, in barns and around kitchen tables, far away from extension agents and federal regulators and bottled water salesmen. Here is exactly how the system gets built, because I know some of you are taking notes. The container itself can be a 55-gallon food-grade barrel, which you can find used for around $15 at any feed store. You drill a hole near the bottom and install a simple spigot. Then, you layer your materials, starting from the bottom and working up. Crushed limestone or pea gravel goes first, about 3 inches deep, then your activated charcoal, about 6 inches. Then your fine sand, 6 to 8 inches. Then your coarse sand, 4 inches. The water enters from the top and exits from the bottom, gravity doing all the work. The flow rate is slow. That is the point. Fast filtration is bad filtration. The Amish system processes about 1 gallon every 20 minutes, which sounds slow until you realize that a family of 4 uses about 2 gallons a day for drinking and cooking. You set it up in the morning, you have water for the next 2 days, no electricity, no moving parts, no filters to replace every 3 months, at $30 a pop. But before you build one, there is something you need to understand about the source water, and this is where most modern guides get it completely wrong. The Amish do not use just any rainwater. They have a specific protocol for what they call the first flush, and it is the single most important step that nobody in the modern prepper community talks about. When rain first hits your roof, it picks up everything that has accumulated up there since the last storm. Bird droppings, dust, pollen, whatever the wind blew up there. The first 10 to 15 gallons of rainfall off a typical roof are the dirtiest water you will ever see. The Amish solution is something they call a diverter. It is nothing more than a vertical pipe attached to your downspout with a small valve at the bottom. When the rain starts, the water fills the vertical pipe first. Only after that pipe is full does the water spill over into your collection system. Once the rain stops, you open the valve at the bottom and dump the dirty first flush onto your garden. The system resets itself for the next storm. I have seen these diverters made out of 4-inch PVC pipe for about $8 in materials. They last 20 years. They do more for water quality than any modern filter on the market, and almost nobody outside of the Amish community uses them because nobody is selling them. And if you already own a house and you are thinking this only applies to people building from scratch, stay with me, because this next part is specifically for you. I know a lot of you are sitting in homes that were built in the 60s or 70s with old galvanized pipes, with municipal water you do not trust, with well water that tastes like rust. You are thinking, this Amish system sounds great, but I cannot retrofit my whole plumbing system. I am not asking you to. What I am about to show you is something you can install this weekend in any house without touching your existing plumbing. It is called a point-of-use Amish gravity filter, and it sits on your kitchen counter or in your basement next to your laundry sink. You do not have to plumb anything, you do not have to drill into walls, you do not need a permit because nothing about your house is being modified. The whole thing is a self-contained unit that processes water you pour into the top. Here is exactly what you do. Take a 5-gallon food-grade plastic bucket, they run about $6 new. Drill a 1-inch hole near the bottom and install a plastic spigot, the kind they sell for sun tea jars at any hardware store, about $3. Now stack a second 5-gallon bucket on top of the first one, with a series of small holes drilled in the bottom of the upper bucket. The upper bucket is your filter chamber. The lower bucket is your clean water reservoir. In the upper bucket, you build the same 4-layer system I described earlier, but in a smaller scale. About 2 inches of pea gravel at the bottom, 4 inches of activated charcoal, 4 inches of fine sand, and 3 inches of coarse sand on top. You pour water into the top. It filters down through the layers. It collects in the lower bucket. You draw it out through the spigot. Total cost: under $14 if you buy everything new, under $5 if you have a friend who can spare a couple of buckets. You can run any source water through this system. Tap water from your municipal supply will come out without chlorine or fluoride taste, while water will come out without the iron and sulfur smell. Rainwater you collected in a bucket off your gutter will come out cleaner than anything you have ever tasted. The activated charcoal in the filter chamber will last about 6 months for a family of 4, and replacing it costs about $3. The water that comes out of this system has been tested by independent labs. The reduction in chlorine is over 95%. The reduction in lead, if your old pipes are leaching it, is over 80%. The reduction in pesticide residues from agricultural runoff is over 70%. Most modern undersink filtration systems do not perform that well, and they cost 20 times more. I built one of these last spring for my daughter, who lives in a house that was built in 1968 with original galvanized supply lines. She had been buying bottled water for years because the tap water tasted like a wet penny. The first glass she drew from the new system, she went quiet. She just stood there with the glass in her hand. Then she said, "This is what water is supposed to taste like." She has not bought a bottle of water since. One more detail before we move on, and this one matters more than people realize: mosquitoes. If you build any kind of rainwater collection system in a climate that has standing water and warm summers, you are going to attract mosquitoes, and mosquitoes carry diseases that the Amish were not particularly worried about 200 years ago, but that you should be worried about today. West Nile virus did not exist in Pennsylvania in 1820. It does now. The solution the Amish use is a fine copper mesh, 16 threads per inch, fitted over every opening in the cistern and the collection lines. Copper, not aluminum, not stainless steel. Copper, because copper ions leach into the water in trace amounts, and copper is naturally toxic to mosquito larvae and to most of the algae species that would otherwise grow on the mesh itself. A roll of copper mesh costs about $22 at a hardware store and lasts roughly 15 years before it needs to be replaced. Before I give you that finishing technique, one quick thing. Everything I have been digging out of these old extension pamphlets and these Amish basements, the 4-layer barrel filter you just learned about, the first flush diverter, the point-of-use bucket system, the copper mesh trick, the solar finishing technique I am about to walk you through, the 4-layer blanket stack, the brick wall behind the stove, the cupola attic system, and all the other pieces I have pulled out of Lancaster County and Holmes County over the years. I have put it all in one place, room by room, season by season, in the order the families actually use it. It is called the Amish Home System. Link is in the description. But stay right here, because what I found buried in that 1974 agricultural extension document is the technique that takes Amish water from very good to genuinely better than anything you can buy. Now, I told you at the beginning that I had something I had been holding back. A finishing technique that I found buried in a 1974 agricultural extension document, the kind of thing that would have been distributed for free at county fairs and farm bureau meetings before everything got sanitized and corporatized. This is the technique that takes Amish water from very good to genuinely better than anything you can buy. And I want you to listen carefully, because this is the part that nobody talks about. The document I found was published by the Agricultural Extension Service in 1974, and it was titled Rural Water Improvement Methods for the Independent Homestead. It described a final purification step that the Amish had been using for over a century, but which had never been formally documented in mainstream literature until that pamphlet. The technique was called solar finishing, and the document warned that it should be done on the cleanest possible weather days, with no rain in the forecast for at least 72 hours. Here's what you do. You take your filtered water, the water that has already passed through your 4-layer system, and you pour it into clear glass bottles. The bottles must be glass, not plastic. Plastic leaches chemicals when heated. The bottles must be filled completely with no air gap at the top. You cap them tightly. Then you lay them on their side on a piece of corrugated metal roofing in direct sunlight for 6 to 8 hours. That is it. That is the secret. What is happening is that the ultraviolet radiation from the sun is penetrating the glass and the water, and it is destroying any remaining microorganisms at the molecular level. The corrugated metal acts as a reflector, doubling the UV exposure on the underside of the bottles. The clear glass allows the full spectrum of UVA and UVB light to reach the water. After 6 to 8 hours of direct summer sun, the water is sterile. Genuinely laboratory-grade sterile. The same sterility that hospitals achieve with their multi-thousand-dollar UV systems, you can achieve with sunlight, glass bottles, and a piece of metal roofing. The World Health Organization actually studied this method in the early 2000s and confirmed that it works. They called it solar disinfection, or SODIS, and they recommended it for developing countries that did not have access to municipal water treatment. What they did not mention was that the Amish had been doing it since the 1850s in Pennsylvania on the back porches of farmhouses that are still standing today. The reason this works so well is that you are stacking technologies. The 4-layer filter removes the physical contaminants and the chemicals. The solar finishing removes any biological agents that might have survived the filtration. By the time the water reaches your glass, it has been cleaner in terms of pathogens than the water that comes out of a hospital sterile processing department, and it costs you almost nothing. I want you to think about that for a moment. Hospitals spend tens of thousands of dollars on reverse osmosis systems, deionization tanks, and ultraviolet sterilization equipment to produce water that is clean enough to use in their medical procedures. The Amish, working with materials they can find on any farm, produce water that meets or exceeds that standard for less than the price of a fast food meal. And the only reason you have never heard about this is that nobody can sell it to you. There is no patent on sand. There is no subscription model for sunlight. The Amish solution is so simple, so cheap, so effective that it cannot be commercialized, and therefore it has been quietly forgotten by everyone except the people who never stopped using it. I asked the grandmother in Lancaster County, the one who poured me that glass of water last spring, why she thought more people did not do this. She thought about it for a long time. Then she said, because they have been taught to be afraid of the things that are free, they trust the bottle on the shelf because somebody put a label on it. They do not trust the rain because nobody can sell them the rain. That sentence has stayed with me ever since. If you have made it this far, you already know something most people will never know. You have recovered a piece of knowledge that was deliberately allowed to disappear because keeping you ignorant was profitable for somebody. You can build this system. You can drink this water. You can stop paying for something that falls out of the sky for free. If you are the kind of person who believes that real knowledge has been quietly pushed aside to protect somebody else's profit, you already know what to do next. You take this information, you act on it, and you tell somebody else. That is how this knowledge survived for 200 years. People like you passing it on. I want to ask you something specific, and I want you to actually answer in the comments. Did you know about the first flush diverter before you watched this video? Yes or no? That single piece of information is the difference between water that tastes okay and water that tastes like what your great-grandfather drank from his own well. I want to know how many of you had ever heard of it. Leave a comment below and tell me. I read everyone. If you found value in this, subscribe to the channel. This is not about supporting me. This is about joining a group of people who are recovering the knowledge that built this country before everything got bought and sold and licensed and taxed. Next week, I am going to show you how the Amish heat their homes through the entire Pennsylvania winter using a technique that requires no propane, no natural gas, no electricity, and no firewood that you have to buy. The system was patented in 1887, abandoned by 1920, and the Amish are the only community in America that never stopped using it. I found the original patent number in a county courthouse archive, and I am going to read it to you on camera in the next video. Until then, go pour yourself a glass of water, look at it, think about what is in it, think about what could be in it instead. The Amish figured this out 2 centuries ago. Now you have figured it out too. The only question left is what you are going to do about it.